beautiful thing. As long as I hold the string, I'd be a silly so-and-so if I could ever let it go.
Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, Staten Island, and I say that at the beginning of all the shows that I do here because we are on at a particular time, but then again, once in a while, they throw us in as a filler, and it even could be 3 in the morning. So, and this is the Al Lambert Show, and welcome. And the show is always about people who help people, people in the community who are doing great things. I also have plenty of artists and writers and singers on the show, and each show is always dedicated to the memory of my mom and dad, and my dad particularly because he had a television show here in the 90s, and he was Johnny Carson and I was Ed McMahon. And he actually whet my appetite for the television thing. And today I have terrific guests on the show, but I have sitting with me Staten Island legend, song stylist, and entrepreneur, and he's no stranger to most Staten Islanders, Joe Tirone. Joe, hi. Thank you for coming today.
Thank you.
And we have so many things to talk about.
Right, we sure do.
And I have to say that every person who went to Catholic school on Staten Island for the last, how many years had the business? 62 years.
61 years.
61 years on Port Ricmond Avenue, which was always called Richmond Avenue in our day. They all of a sudden now it's Port Ricmond Avenue.
Port Ricmond Avenue, right.
But it was Richmond Avenue, and many people came to your store.
Absolutely.
You know, you and your two
Thank
brothers.
God.
And what a legigendary family and a legendary contribution you people made.
I appreciate that. That's
true.
Very nice.
It's definitely true.
Yeah.
And then about your music and your singing and, you know, so tell me, when did you start singing? When did you know that you wanted to sing, or how did it all work?
In 1940, I went to the senior prom in Port Ricmond High School with a very young lady, but I'm sorry I forgot her name.
Oh, you didn't marry her, or you did?
No, I didn't. No, that's one of the ones I didn't.
Oh, okay, good.
So anyhow, she said, Joe, you sing. Why don't you get up and sing? I said, well, first of all, nobody asked me, and I don't know if I can do it. Oh, sure you can do it. She went up to the band leader, and she said, my friend here can sing. He said, good. So I went up to the bandstand, not knowing what key or anything like that. So I started to sing, imagination is silly. Right. You go around willy-nilly. For example, I go around wanting you. So Al Lambert.
I like it.
Al Miranda was in the audience,
was a kid,
and he came over to me. He said, Joe, my band is playing at the Forest Tavern, and they're looking for a singing waiter. He said, are you interested? I said, well, is the Pope Catholic? So
when do I start?
So when do I start? So anyhow, at that time, I was shining shoes in my father's shoe repair shop. Matter of fact, I started when I was 12, and here I was 17, still doing it. And anyhow, at that night when I was supposed to go to the Forest Tavern, I stopped at 7:30, went home, washed up, and got dressed. And my cousin, Joe Tirone, whom I tell you I really, really appreciated, he drove me to the Forest Tavern, and then Al Miranda drove me home.
Wow, you got your ride. You were chauffeured on your first gig.
Right, there you go.
Great.
No, because I didn't have a car.
Right.
But that's how I started.
That's how did you work with Al? Because Al had a band. His brother Danny had a band.
Right.
Danny had a band. There were 2 Miranda bands.
Right.
And I was a kid when when they were in business already.
Right.
And I did the same thing. I wound up singing with them, not professionally, but sitting in like you did.
So anyhow, we went on, after the Forest Tavern, we went to the shows. We were in and out of nightclubs, 18 of them, Staten Island, all have drinking and dancing. Right. Today, I think there's only one, the Bermuda Inn.
Yeah, that's about it. Yeah.
And
the game is over. That's sad, but that's
yes,
the truth.
It is sad. So one night when Al was playing somewhere else, I was at the Great Hills Inn with Jersey Joy. And we had a floor show consisting of an MC who doubled as a comedian, a singer, and a voluptuous, well-endowed striptease
That
artist.
was the nightclub business.
So anyhow, an hour before the show, the owner gets a phone call from the MC comedian. He said, "I'm sorry, I'm not going out. It's snowing lightly. I just bought a brand new car, and I'm not going to do it." So he looked at Jersey Joy and he said, "You're it." So Jersey Joy, a very well-educated guy. I don't know, it was Dartmouth, Princeton, Yale. And his answer was, "I don't know nothing about being no MC, and I ain't going to do it." So the owner says, "You're it." So I brushed up on some Henny Youngman jokes,
Right.
about 3 of them. I sang 3 songs, and it was time to introduce this voluptuous, well-endowed. So before that, she said, "Joe, I don't like throwing my clothes on the floor. Would you please stand on the side, and I'll give you the clothes." So she dances around, gives me her shoes, dances around, gives me her stockings, jacket, shirt, and pants, and there she is in the bikini.
Right.
And so, what was the highlight of the evening? It wasn't my telling the terrible jokes
Right.
or singing the songs. The highlight of the evening is when she handed me her bra.
Welcome to the...
Right, so we had a lot of fun that night.
Well, you know, I just want to interject for 1 second. I started in the Miami Club at 15 years
Oh,
old.
boy.
And the same kind of thing happened. I had my whole family there, 40 people, my grandmother, and they told me to go wait in the dressing room. And I walk in the dressing room, and the stripper was nude. She had her feet up on the thing. And I was St. Peter's High School. I went, "Oh, like that."
No
And she was doing her nails. She says, "Welcome to the music business, kid." So I had a similar, that's how it was. They used to call them toilets in those days. Because you were working with a comedian, a stripper, a band, you know, and that's how it was, you know. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Another incident at the Fairway Club.
Helen
That was-
Fitzgerald, Fairway Club, she owned it.
Who?
Helen Fitzgerald was the owner.
How do you know I was going to say that?
Because I used to wash her car when I was a
Okay,
kid.
so I sang there for about 6 months. All of a sudden, she calls me over. She said, "Joe, you're very good at what you do. I always see the people dancing, looking up at you singing." She says, "That's all right. But what I don't like is when they sit down to have a drink, they're still looking at you." She says, "I'm here to sell drinks.
Wow.
And that's how I make my living. So I'm sorry I'm going to have to let you go."
Wow.
So she let me go. Now tell me, shouldn't she have given me severance pay?
Absolutely. And, you know, the bars in Seaside Heights and all those places years ago, they had the bands behind the bar. And the reason they did that, the people were sitting at the bar and they were looking at the band, but the bartender was in their face. And the bartender could say, "Another drink, another drink." So they purposely put the bands there so they could sell the booze.
That's it.
So that's a good thing. So then what happened after that? I know you
Okay.
sang in church too.
So in 1941, I enlisted in the Merchant Marines.
Right.
And I was stationed at Sheepshead Bay. After a 6-month training period, I was all set to be shipped out, but the office manager came to me and says, "Joe, I see by your itinerary that you are a stenographer typist. Now the staff psychiatrist is looking for a secretary. We'd like you to be his secretary." So I said, "All right." Now this staff psychiatrist taught me 2 things. He said, 2 things. Let me think of one.
It's all right. Think of 3. It's better.
Anticipation of an event is more fearful than the actual event.
That's true today.
So anyhow, I got up to sing, and I'll tell you the truth, the anticipation, and it was just too much for me. I did a terrible job at it. I forgot the refrain lyrics, but Major Bose said, "Well, all right." I had won a contest to appear at Major Bose.
Wow, he was big time, Major Bose.
Yeah.
That was like the American Idol of the
Right.
1940s. Yeah.
He thanked me, and I went on my way, but terribly embarrassed. Terribly embarrassed.
Yeah, well, I auditioned for him, and I didn't make it either. I was 12
Really?
years old. I auditioned for...
You were 12 years
I
old.
was 12 years old in New York, and I auditioned, and I didn't make it either. So it is what it is.
So later on, at 1975, I was still singing 18 different clubs, and all of a sudden, rock and roll took over and jazz.
Yeah.
So there weren't too many jobs, nor were there too many places open for business.
Right.
So I joined the St. Teresa's Choir
Right.
in my neighborhood, and that was 1975. And after singing upstairs in the choir loft, Father Bolt, the pastor, called me. He said, "Joe, I don't like you standing upstairs singing to people's backs. I want you to come on the altar with me." So I said, okay. I went on the altar with him. So I became a soloist in weddings, funerals, and weekend masses.
Ann Sweeney was there in those days?
Right. Ann Sweeney. That's right.
Yeah,
So anyhow, what have you got to say?
Well, I was going to say that I started in church too. I started in St. Michael's in Mariners Harbor, actually. And Joseph, Rose Gipper was the organist. And
Oh, I know Rose.
you know,
Yeah.
Rose passed away not so long ago. And her son, John, is in Blessed Sacrament. But Joe Giordano is there now. She's there over 60 years, the same choir lady that I had when I was a kid, and she's still in St. Michael's Church.
Oh, boy.
I started in church. How many years did you spend at St. Teresa's?
Well, from 1975 to 2014, doing weddings, funerals, and weekend masses. And I have a note here. Oh, in 1949, my two brothers, Sal and Lou, and myself, we opened up Tyrone Shoe Store on Port Ricmond Avenue. And Louis was very good friends with Sixto Deschanto, and between the two of them, they said they were going to get uniform shoes for St. Sylvester and Lady Help the Christians. So we started with that, and we grew and grew. We had to move from the small place to a bigger place with a huge cellar for our inventory. Anyhow, we did build it up to 15 elementary and 3 Catholic high schools,
Right.
plus 3 Lutheran schools.
Yeah. You guys had some business there.
We did.
And it was
We did.
My former father-in-law, he passed away now, Charlie, he was from National Shoes.
Oh,
Charlie Asaro. I was married 38 years to his daughter.
Wow.
And he always wanted me to, he loved you guys. In fact, I know when he retired, he came to work with you for a while.
Oh.
But he had always wanted me to try it. So I went there one Saturday, National Shoes on Richmond Avenue. I was in my 20s. And he put me on the floor. So that worked out for me.
So as far as my personal life is concerned, I was married to an absolutely wonderful woman for 45 years, and she passed away in year 2000. The next year, I was very lucky to meet another wonderful woman, Emma Nickel.
Yes, I remember
And
meeting her.
that was in 2001. Today is 2016. We've been together 15 years and enjoying it.
Isn't that amazing?
Now, her favorite song was
Wasn't imagination, was it?
Kiss a sigh is such a sigh as time goes by.
Oh, right, okay. Yeah.
And I had already been doing Guilty. Is it a sin? Is it a crime? Loving you, dear, like I do. If it's a crime, then I'm guilty. Guilty of loving you. That was my first signature song. The second was All of Me, everybody knows that.
Yeah, that's
the
great.
third was Had to Be You. And the fourth one was Nevertheless. So she said, why don't you do As Time Goes By? I said, I'll tell you why I don't do it. Because you have to rhyme I. As time goes by, you and I, no, you can't deny. All that stuff.
You forget where it sits.
So she said, I'll take care of that. So she sat down, wrote the lyrics, and I looked at it and studied it. So I called my friend Ed Moran. He is the prior director of St. Teresa.
Years, yeah.
And I said, Ed, you know my limitations. I don't have a wide range. I said, what key can I do this in? So he said, you can do it in B flat. So that's my signature now, signature song. Now, what's your signature song?
I'm looking at the time, bear with me, but we have about 2 minutes left. My true signature song, which I don't really have because I know about 5,000, 6,000 songs in my 54-year career.
Wow.
And I have all these songs in my brain. And the song I like the best can move, every other day. But I Have Dreamed from The King and I. And when I was opening act for Rodney Dangerfield for many years. And I would do that at the end of the show. And that's how Dangerfield offered me the job to go on the road with him, because that would bring the house down. And that became more of a like a salesman. If you're going to close the deal, I sing "I Have Dream" and you close the deal. It happens to be beautifully written. Sinatra recorded it, and so many other people recorded it. But I have my own arrangement, which I created myself.
So anyhow, last year, Emma and I were in Florida. And we went to see Jack Jones in concert.
Wow.
And he sang Impossible Dream. And I just couldn't believe it. It was just fantastic.
He is amazing.
So I looked at Emma and I said, you know what? I can't do that song, but I know somebody who can. She said, who's that? I said, Al Lambert.
Oh, that's very nice of you.
So I called Al Lambert, told him Impossible Dream.
We really have to go, but I want to tell you something. That song, Impossible Dream, believe it or not, a lot of people don't know. It's written in a very unusual time signature. And a lot of people change it and sing it in a normal time signature, but it's not as easy to do as many people think. So the original recording, I think it's 12/8, I'm not sure what it is, but it's not a typical, easy sing-song type of arrangement. And I've done it a few times, both the hard way and the easy way. I'll always pick the easy way. Listen, we have to go, but I'm going to tell you is we're going to do Joe Tirone Part 2 in a few months, because we have so much more to talk about. So we'll do this again, and I want to thank you for coming on.
I want to thank you for inviting me.
Okay, and remember, the show is worldwide now. We're on YouTube, so it's not only Staten Island. Tell everybody all over the country, all the Joe Tirone fans. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joe.
Good to see you.
What a pleasure.
Bye-bye.
Our next guest will be coming up in a second.
Okay.
So my next guest is Mr. Joseph Ferrara, and Joseph is a principal with BFC Partners, and they are the developers of the new Empire Outlets. Hi, Joe.
Nice to see you, Al.
Nice
Thank
to
you
see
for having me.
Oh, absolutely welcome. I have to talk for a moment about our common heritage with the name.
Oh, the Italian heritage.
Well, Ferrara is my mother's maiden name.
Oh, is it? Wow.
Yeah, my mother's a Ferrara, and the Ferraras, from Mariners Harbor, and we were a family almost 300 people large here. My grandfather had 11 children, actually 12, but 11 survived, and grew.
There you go.
And in the old days, everybody was from the harbor, and now they're all over the country.
Right, all spread out?
Yeah, spread out. We got half of them still on Staten Island, and another maybe 30-40% within an hour's drive. But this is still home base, and they just named Harbor Road after my dad.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, Dom Lambert Way, right on the corner of Forest Avenue and Harbor Road, for his 30 years on the community board and worrying about the North Shore and trying to make the North Shore better. So they honored him with the naming of the street.
That's wonderful.
Yeah,
congratulations.
thank you, because we're really involved in the community, and trying to make it better and livable,
Well, it's always good to be involved in your community. I stress that to my children all the time.
Yeah.
Our youth needs to be more empowered. They need to get their voice across.
Right.
It's important that they become involved.
Right.
Especially in the area where they live.
Right. Where are you now? Where do you live?
I live on the South Shore. I live on Staten Island.
Okay.
I've been out here for 24 years. I'm born and raised in Brooklyn.
My father was born there. Good place to be.
Yeah, my parents were born in Italy.
No
They migrated
kidding.
over.
Wow.
My mother's entire family is still in Italy.
Wow.
We raised our children out here.
You bilingual?
I'm bilingual, yes, I speak. Well, I say I speak 3 languages because I speak Italian, Sicilian, and English. Well, at least I think I speak English.
That's funny. That's true. Sicilian's a whole different world.
A whole different language, yeah.
They were Sicilian too.
My kids actually my oldest fully understands the Sicilian. So whenever I want to try and get a point across where I don't want anyone to know what we're talking about, I speak to him in Sicilian. He doesn't answer me back in Sicilian, but he gets it. Yeah, he gets it, which is good.
Well, that's what my parents did.
And my grandson now, I'm trying to talk to him in Sicilian too. I want him to get it,
You want him to get it.
Yeah.
And I should have learned it. I lived with my grandparents, and they only spoke Italian. But my grandfather was insistent meant that we spoke English. I remember my mother trained, no, I want them to speak English, because in those days when they came over, they wanted to assimilate. Today, I'm so mad that I didn't learn it. 'Cause I would have been, bilingual myself, except for the curse words.
It's a wonderful language.
It is.
The first language I learned was Italian. I actually learned English in school once I started school.
My mom too, because she was first generation. That's what happened. Anyway, so let's talk a little about these wonderful Empire outlets. I'm thrilled. I'm going to set the stage, and you're going to tell me about it. I'm thrilled because Staten Island needs a reason for people to stay here. From a large business viewpoint, okay, Staten Island people from June 23rd to September 7th, they leave Staten Island. They evacuate. And there's nothing to keep them here, and there's nothing to bring people here. It's not a destination for vacations and tourism. And so that means 50, 70,000 people leave. The gas stations suffer, the restaurants suffer. Everything suffers for that two or 3 months. And if you're in business the way I've been all my life, you got to hustle for a living, you notice that dip in traffic because there's nothing bringing others here. So I am all for progress and things like this. Just want to set the stage.
Well, sure. Well, I'm hoping that we're going to change all that in the near future.
I hope so too. Yeah.
So to tell you a little bit more about our project and our I can tell you that we're in partnership also, our partnerships that currently exist on the developments that we're doing on the North Shore. So Empire Outlets is a 1.1 million square foot development site that sits immediately outside the footsteps of the Staten Island Ferry Terminal, which is probably one of the top most trafficked commuter hubs in all of New York City, which most people don't know. Wow. 70,000 people ride the ferry a day. 892, I believe, different modes of public transportation with bus, cabs, and the train. Dead end at the ferry terminal. Our project, 1.1 million square feet, we have approximately 320,000 square feet of GLA for stores, for retail stores. It's an outlet concept. We'll have approximately 100 different retail concepts. We have a 40-somewhat thousand square foot branded food and beverage deck that we're calling Feast, where we're bringing in New York City talent, high culinary talent from the New York City market are opening up establishments at Feast at Empire Outlets, which is pretty exciting stuff because it gives Staten Islanders another venue to go and enjoy the waterfront with spectacular views of the New York City skyline. Fabulous outdoor spaces, music, entertainment. We had spoken about music too, right on the Esplanade,
I told you about Ghirardelli Square, what they do.
Well, we just did a Ghirardelli deal on
I saw that.
Yes, we did, which is pretty exciting. And you know what? The Ghirardelli deal, actually, I come to learn this after we signed the lease, will be New York City's one and only. Well, up till today, it's New York City's one and only, right? It's going to be here on our promenade.
That is great.
It's really fun stuff.
Well, their concept is that you buy a space, you rent a space, you get a permit for a space to perform. And let's say you were 10 hours a day, you can get 2 or 3 hours, and if it's a good spot for performers, you can put 4 or 5 live acts and stuff like that.
Yeah, well, we have centrally located at Empire Outlets, we have this 12,000 square foot outdoor courtyard area. 3 beautiful water features will be located there. It'll be beautifully landscaped. It interacts with our food and beverage level, so there's line of sight between what's happening on the Belvedere up there. And that space will be programmed with musical venues such as the ones that we're speaking about now. We're in discussions. Just as of a couple of days ago, I was talking to the Staten Island Zoo about bringing zoo animals in for the children.
That's a good draw to get them there.
Yeah, it's a great draw. Great draw. We're thinking about how we program the outdoor spaces at Empire now. Now I'm thinking about it now for a year after we open, so that it's ever changing and it's always evolving and keeps people. I mean, not only shopping, which is what we want them to do, experience the shopping, but do the
you got to bring them there to shop.
To come have a good time. If you get there, odds are that you're going to spend in the stores, which only translates to tax dollars for the city. Which is another fantastic plus about this project. I mean, it's just an economic engine for the North Shore and the city of New York.
It's incredible.
The tax revenue that we're expecting Empire Outlets to generate is pretty phenomenal and staggering. So you had asked about your question about how do we get people across the harbor and get them here and why evacuate Staten Island. And we're pitching Empire Outlets in tandem with New York Wheel internationally. Luckily, we are fortunate enough to partner up with New York City and Company. New York City and Company takes us on these international road shows with them where we actually introduce Empire Outlets and New York Wheel to the entire world. Most recently, we just came back from a sales mission to Japan and Korea. Really exciting. When these tour operators, when we present our projects to them, they're just blown away as to this whole transformative development opportunity that's happening here in our borough, and that's pretty good news to hear on our end.
Absolutely.
We just came back from Ireland. We met the ambassador of Ireland came, right? So that was pretty exciting stuff.
Pretty hip stuff.
And they take us with them with Rockefeller Center and One World Observatory and the New Whitney Museum. I mean, we make these presentations to thousands of tour operators,
letting them all know where
letting them know when it's going to come down. How can they send their people over, book packages? Do the shopping, ride the wheel, snug harbor.
This is a big bonus for Staten Island because we're always out of the loop when it comes to tourism in the city of New York. This is a mega.
Well, that's all going to change come 2017.
It should.
Yeah, that's all going to change. And we're going to start selling packages to the waterfront sometime at the tail end of this year. Because people, when they plan their trips coming from an international destination, but not only internationally, even domestically, they plan ahead. They plan up to a year ahead of time, which is you have to get them prepared and schooled, as to what they want to do when they come here to the city. Most come in a limited amount of time. So the one fantastic thing about grouping in our what we're offering on the waterfront is, you get to go on the Staten Island Ferry, which right now I believe is either number 3 or number 4 visited tourist attraction in New York City, which is pretty phenomenal in itself to think.
Yeah.
The Staten Island Ferry, by the way, it's going to be celebrating its 200th year anniversary next year.
Carnegie, I think, started it. Andrew Carnegie.
Did he?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it works out perfect timing with the opening of Empire Outlets in New York Wheel to have that celebration with them. I was actually looking at historic footage from the 1920s on YouTube. You can get it on YouTube, which is phenomenal stuff. Stock footage. Really interesting. So, you ride the Staten Island Ferry, right? And what happens on the Staten Island Ferry currently, and it happens with about 2.5 million existing tourists that do it, once that boat sails by the Statue of Liberty, literally they just flock to one side. They get their photo opportunity.
Right.
And, people, as much as they want that photo op and want to experience what the statue is all about, they don't want to spend and consume the better part of 3/4 of a day getting out to that island.
Right.
Unfortunately, I kind of disagree. I mean, if I'm taking my family to see a historic attraction, I want to experience it, but then my wife and my kids kind of beg to differ, right? Everyone's interested in different things, but you come over, you do your photo opportunity, that selfie with the Statue of Liberty, you come over to the waterfront, you get to ride the world's tallest observation wheel. I mean, that's pretty.
It's gonna be,
I just did. I actually just came off. I was in Vegas, and we did the high roller. I mean, we had a blast. There was 8 adults. We went up there. We had a fantastic time.
That's great. You prepped.
We prepped. I'm prepping. I've been to the London Eye. The London Eye was great. There's a funny story behind the London Eye, too, which I can tell you.
Go ahead.
So when we responded to these publicly, there were requests for expressions of interest to these vacant parcels on the waterfront through EDC. We had put in our outlet concept. That was our design that we went in for. It was a competition. And on one site, on the site that currently where the wheel exists, that's where Empire Outlets was supposed to sit. It was originally called Harbor Commons, but we changed the name to Empire Outlets. And on the other site, where we currently sit now, we had proposed an office complex with some ancillary retail and possibly some housing. So having just coming back from a trip from London, actually, where I had just been on the London Eye, I come back to my office and we had gotten a phone call saying, hey, you know what, we really love your concept about doing an outlet mall on the waterfront, but we have another concept that we want to team you up with, but which we feel that combined together would make some fantastic destination. And kidding around, I said to my partner, I bet you it's an observation wheel. No, you're crazy. It's never going to happen.
You had a
you can't design it. You can't build it. It's on the harbor, blah, blah, blah. Lo and behold, we walk into a room, and the team that walks in was Rich Marin and his team, and New York Wheel, and our marriage has been set since that day 2.5 years ago. And it's a pretty incredible marriage to have because that wheel is going to be an icon on the harbor and it's going to draw a lot of people over.
It's going to be great.
Yeah.
See, I was worried because I told you how many people tried to bring, but you guys thought deep, and that's good. Deep, way before people come to the boat. You thought deep. But I was making a joke inside. I said there should be at the ferry a sign, get back to New York, and people go through there, but it really leads you to the Empire Outlets.
Well, no, you know
kidding
what?
around,
what happens now, actually, and you see it. I mean, you see the tourists come. Well, when we first started, before the process, before anyone really knew what Empire Outlets and New York Wheel was all about.
Right.
The tourists would just come, and they literally just come out of the exit portal there to the ferry, just turn around and get right back into the holding room.
I know.
And wait for the next boat to go over. But what's happening now is, with all of our marketing that we've been doing domestically and internationally, people come out and actually looking to shop at Empire and get on the wheel. I'm like, we're not open yet.
Oh my God.
Yeah, that's actually happening.
Well, that's a good thing.
Well, that's a good thing that we're getting brand recognition out there
already.
Already. Yeah, it's really important to be out there in the forefront.
And let me throw. I know this is like the pets. Everybody's worried about the traffic. I don't worry about the traffic. All right, if people think I'm nuts, I don't worry about the traffic because there would never be a New York or Queens or Brooklyn, if every time you try to do something, they worry about the traffic. We'd have no Madison Square Garden, no Penn Station, no Grand Central. Great things are done when, build it, and they will park.
Right.
What happens is, you build it, make it an attraction, you're making your city great. Yes, there are ancillary problems, but those things can ultimately be worked on, and particularly with other forms of transportation. Most of you people are coming from the ferry. I don't worry about the traffic.
Well, I mean, the traffic is
to
a
degree.
To a degree. We've done our fair share of studies, that's for sure.
I'm sure you have.
And we can handle the traffic, but you know what? You'd rather have traffic than have a ghost town, honestly.
That's my point.
Ghost town equals empty storefronts upland in St. George.
No jobs?
No jobs. I mean, Empire Outlets in itself is going to generate over 1,000 jobs, new opportunities for people that live in St. George and Stapleton and that surrounding area. It's pretty phenomenal. But the generational growth to Empire is really important too. So we only have so much square footage to lease out to these national retailers. And what will happen undoubtedly is that once we fill that,
something else.
Well, what happens is that generational growth, those retailers will want to just, translate upland into the empty storefronts.
Right.
More restaurants will come, more people will come. It'll just migrate up. It's kind of an economic wave that we're projecting to just move inland into the island.
Well, you're going to help that Lighthouse Museum.
And the Lighthouse Museum.
Indirectly, you're going to help that.
Well, we brought them on. We folded them into our International Marketing Alliance as well. So just so that, quick, I know we're short on time.
Yeah, that's right.
So we folded in. So we have ourselves, Empire Outlets, New York Wheel, Snug Harbor, Cultural Campus, and the Botanical Gardens, and the museums that sit on that campus are folded into our International Marketing Alliance that we're calling Destination St. George. We have the Yankee organization, which is great. That I love that organization. I love the people that run it.
Good.
So you can come over, right? You can get your selfie with the Statue of Liberty. You can ride the Staten Island Ferry. You can do your outlet shopping, ride the world's tallest wheel, catch
stay in a
Yankee
hotel,
game, and go to
have
a
a
museum.
drink.
Go to a museum, have a drink. Yeah, there's lots of fun stuff that we're able to do.
I know Gary and Julie's building that back of the thing over there.
Oh, he's doing Back of the Bay, yes.
Yeah, and then you have the home port, not at home port.
Irby. Well, now it's being branded as Irby. That's David's site. Navy Pier.
Okay, Navy Pier, and that's similar to Pier Village in Long Branch, which I used to sing at McLuhan's there on Friday nights.
Yeah. Great restaurant.
I'm all over the place. Anyway, I'm going to take a half a second. I'm always promoting live music, which is why I called you, because live music is sadly lost, but I'm always trying to pump it. And part of the reasons I did this show was one of my thrusts was that I bring a lot of live music here and let people remember that it ain't just a DJ. One of my dear friends who's a keyboard player, she works more than anybody, Lynn Porter, she's the best in the business. I have 3 different keyboard players I work with for all my different various events. And she's playing a job and she had her machine, but she's singing and playing. And somebody comes up to her and says, "Do you have a song?" So she says, "What do you mean? Do I have?"
Proprietary song, you mean?
No, do you have, meaning thinking it was a DJ and you have to have it.
Have it, and it was her performing it.
She said, "There's no have." She says, "This is live." So for some of these young people, it's not even in the language. They didn't even get the fact that this was being done live.
And that's a shame.
That is a shame. That's why I had mentioned to you that, trying to do that. And I do so many different...
trying, we're going to do it.
I know you are. I have this Broadway show that I'm doing. This is 20 years we're doing, 19 years doing this show for Rotary. It's going to be April 2nd and 3rd. We've raised $500,000 with this show.
Wonderful.
And this is the 19th year, and it's going to be at Staten Island Academy on April 2nd and April 3rd. And if you can't read this, and you're probably not going to be able to, you can call my cell, which I blast all over the place. And it's a charity event and for South Shore Rotary, and going to be a terrific show. So we got 2 minutes. What do you want to say to everyone here in this next 2 minutes about Empire? What did we forget? I'm trying to.
What did we forget? Well,
we have restaurants. Go ahead.
You have restaurants. We have the hotel, the hospitality. That'll be 180 to 190 keys that floats above.
Okay. What's keys? You mean rooms?
Rooms. Right. I'm sorry.
That's right.
I'm in developer lingo
that's
right
now.
now.
I'm wondering. I want to make sure I got that right.
We have that many rooms. It'll have amazing outdoor spaces, and that opportunity.
Keys, I get it. It took me a while.
That opportunity really doesn't exist on that side of the island, too.
You don't have it.
We just don't have it, and it's great to be able to bring it. We have on the waterfront. We also have Lighthouse Point that's being built. I mean, that's pretty exciting.
Right. No,
that's another hotel and another apartment building. They're bringing in. I believe they're folding in 35,000 square feet. They just signed Regis, which is a co-working space, and co-working space is desperately needed on the North Shore as well. But we're really excited. I mean, we're invested in Staten Island.
Oh,
I'm
God.
out here,
And
I take a lot of pride that we're able to bring. I mean, signature projects such as Empire Outlets, but not only that, we've developed about 400 units of affordable housing on Staten Island already that's in existence, and then we're renovating a 540 unit development site out in Mariners Harbor, and then we have about a 250 unit building also on the horizon for the Bay Street corridor that's under the rezoning process right now to bring another quality building out, and it's exciting.
I wish I was 10 years younger, by the time this all happened.
You're good. You're fine. I wish I was 10 years younger too, Al.
Anyway, I want to thank you
very much. Thank you for having me.
The show gets out there. It really does.
Great.
People do watch it, and now they're going to stop you. I saw it the other night, and we are on YouTube also. So
Great.
people off Staten Island, if you want to tell them to tune in, just tell them to get it on YouTube. And thanks for being my guest. I know you're a busy guy. And
thank you.
I really appreciate what all you
and keep up all the wonderful work singing.
I'm trying.
I can't wait to have you on our promenade in our town square.
I am excited.
So am I.
Thanks.
Thank
you. My next guest will be up in a moment. Very interesting also. Thank you. So my next guest, Fern Zagor. And do I pronounce Zagor correctly?
That is right. Okay. You're one of the few who gets it right the first time.
Okay. And Fern, I'm going to read her title. I always just say executive director, but a true title is, she is the president and chief executive officer for Staten Island Mental Health. Hey, Fern. Thank you for being my guest.
And thank you for having me.
And I know how busy you are, because I'm on your board.
Yes, you are.
My attendance has been weak, but I am on your board. And
but your heart is with us all the time.
Okay. We have so many things going on. I know you do. But now that you've been on Staten Island working, for how many years you're working on Staten Island?
Well, it is
top of your head,
I have the answer. This is actually the third time I'm working on Staten Island. Wow. Something keeps bringing me back.
Isn't that something?
So for the Staten Island Mental Health Society, I've been here since 2005. I came in as the chief operating officer, which was the number 2 position.
Right.
And then in 2012, I became the CEO.
Right. Okay.
So I've been here this third time for 11 years.
11 years. And what did you do the other times? What was the...
Well, my very first time was my very first job out of graduate school. I'm a social worker by profession, and I worked at South Beach Psychiatric Center shortly after it opened, and I was there for a number of years, and then left to work in Jackson Heights. And then after my first son was born, I came back onto Staten Island because there was a wonderful program that Adelphi University was running for paraprofessionals who are working in a field related to social work and really wanted to get their bachelor's degree and then go on to their master's degree. It was called the ANSWER program, Adelphi's new social welfare education routes. So I ran that program part-time while I was raising my children and got to meet people throughout Staten Island at that time. Went to different agencies. I sometimes people come up to me and they say, "Do you remember me?" And I look and they say, "I was your student." And now they are executive directors in other agencies. They are therapists on the island.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's been
So it's been your
wonderful.
second home indirectly, I guess.
It really has. I feel very connected to Staten Island.
Very connected. Yeah, I was going to ask you what you felt about Staten Island. So you're almost answering it, I
think Staten Island's a really special place. I've had the opportunity to work in several parts of New York City, coming to Staten Island, there is such a sense of community, people willing to do things for one another, volunteerism.
Amazing, isn't it amazing?
It really is amazing.
People don't get it, they don't get it.
Yeah,
What we have here, besides the topography, which wouldn't be the best in the world, but it's okay.
Well, maybe because it's an island, and maybe because Staten Island has been isolated or separated from others, but that sense of community is just very, very strong.
Very strong.
And in my world of not-for-profits, we've learned to play nicely together in the sandbox.
Right.
We're really not competitive. We've somewhat sometimes.
Yeah, there is somewhat.
There has to be.
Because I deal with a lot.
Right, but we're really looking out for the interest of the community, and to do that, we look out for each other's interests, and we work very, very well together.
Yeah, I love the community of the not-for-profits on Staten Island. It's just amazing. I was working at Willowbrook while you were working, I think. I went to Willowbrook 68 to 74, so I spent 6 years there. And then I volunteered at South Beach Psychiatric Center.
Oh, did you?
For about 2 years. I did a chorus with the patients there. And it's really amazing. There was the girl that taught with, we'll get into all your stuff, we got a little time, so.
No problem.
The girl that I was working there with, she was a piano player, she left Willowbrook and went to South Beach Psych. And I had already left the state. I was full-time cars, full-time music. I went from 3 jobs to 2 jobs. And she said, would you help me? And I said, why not? So I went to South Beach Psychiatric Center, and Willowbrook was different, because Willowbrook, the people were always going to be there for the most part, and it really wasn't crime, it was illness. But there was some criminals in there who were, at that time, in the 70s. And so I was working with these people who were really bad criminals. And she had this situation. And they were having a good time. And then one night we went to do rehearsal, and there was one guy, and he was up for murder. And he had a great voice, and I liked him. So we're going into the rehearsal, and I'm walking up and down the hallway. He's walking up and down the hallways. So I said, John, you're the first guy at rehearsal every week, I said, why don't you, let's start rehearsal. He goes, well, I'm having a problem. I said, well, what's your problem? He says, well, I was wondering whether I should kill you tonight. I said, really? I said, well, if you're going to do that, could you do it after rehearsal? So he said to me, I knew I liked you. He went inside. That's a true story.
That's funny. I knew some of those people. I worked with some of those people.
We had a ball, and it was funny. We actually had a good relationship with this guy.
That's great.
So I spent my years there. Anyway, so let's talk what's going on at Staten Island Mental Health. Where are we?
We've been around since 1895.
Amazing.
Isn't that something? And in fact, we started just pretty much around the corner from here, too, at the Port Ricmond Day Nursery. That's our first site. We had the first day nursery started in 1895. And then in the 1950s, we merged and became the Staten Island Mental Health Society.
Okay.
And our focus is children and families.
Right.
We are the largest provider of children and family services on Staten Island. We are licensed by the State Office of Mental Health, Substance Abuse, Office of Alcoholism and Substance Abuse Services, and Office of People with Developmental Disabilities. There's no other agency on Staten Island that does all that we do, and we have 4 Head Start sites. In fact, I don't know if you know, our Dungan Hill site is the oldest Head Start program in the country. It was started.
Did not know that.
You didn't.
Did not know that. Yeah.
It was started in 1965. It was part of President Johnson's War on Poverty, and he actually mentioned our site in his Rose Garden speech in 1965.
Wow, that's amazing. I did not know that. Well, being involved with your organization, I'm amazed what you said about the volunteerism and the size of your board and the people on the board. Like, they're smart people. They're really smart people. You've accumulated a real good slice of the Staten Island people who are community-minded, experienced, blah, blah, blah. It's impressive.
Well, agencies like mine can't survive without the volunteers that are there to help us. not only do we have, I think, the most special board that there is, people whose heart and soul
Really, it's
are,
amazing.
we say that it takes a village to raise a child.
Right.
Well, that's what we have here. So our board is so dedicated to our children and our families, and will do anything that they can to help.
Yep.
But we also have so many volunteers who help us. We have a reading volunteer program that's been around for, I think, about 40 years. We are in over 30 schools with over 400 volunteers at any time. Excuse me, I take that. Over 250 volunteers working with over 400 children.
Still,
it's
an impressive number, right? It's
not
an impressive
bad.
number, yeah.
So our reading volunteer program is an active program. We're always looking for volunteers.
Right.
We train these people, and they go into the local elementary schools, and they work with children who maybe lack confidence in reading, have struggle with some of the words, and they need someone who will nurture and guide them and give them the confidence to read. I ran into somebody, about a year or two ago, a fellow who was in his 50s, and he came up to me and he said, "I just have to introduce myself to you." I said, "Yes," and he said, "Your reading volunteer program saved my life." Saved your life? What do you mean? And he said that he was a very shy boy in school. He struggled to learn to read, and the reading volunteer who worked with him, so this is more than 40 years before, the reading volunteer made him feel like he was special, made him feel he was important. He never felt embarrassed, helped him get a sense of confidence. And as a result, he was able to move through school feeling so much better about himself. And now he was a very successful professional.
Wow, that's a great testament.
He talked about that as being the seminal experience for him.
Isn't that something?
Isn't
That's
that
great.
something?
Now, in the volunteer program, and forgive me, I should know more about, but I don't. You have you have employees that actually take care of that, obviously, because they have, how people are, sometimes when they're volunteering, they can't show up or they can't appear. You always have backup people. How does the logistics of 250 volunteers?
Volunteers are helping volunteers.
I got
So
you.
we have a network, where you have, in our reading volunteer program, we will have a coordinator at every school. And there'll be several parents, or most of the people who are doing this are people who have retired, and they come from all walks of life. Some are retired teachers, others are people from the sciences, from industry, from finances, and there are people who are still working. It's not only volunteers who are doing this.
Right.
So we'll have a coordinator at each one of our sites, and they help. Working with the principal or some person in the school, they match a child with a volunteer. And the volunteer will go in once or twice a week, as their schedule allows.
Allows, right. Yeah.
Right, and so they work it out that way. The relationships are so strong, the volunteers are always making sure that they're there. I think they get just as much from it as
I think so.
as the kids
And you always
do.
recognize, I'm very impressed with the way you recognize your employees. I'm very impressed the way you do that. That is so important,
Our employees are special.
Yeah.
Our volunteers are special. Our employees are special. I feel so strongly that I'm often the face of the agency. I come,
Right.
I go out and I speak. I come to this program, but I'm not the person who's delivering the services.
Right.
Now, I believe we have an excellent reputation, but it's not because of me. It's because of the services that we provide. It's because of the staff and how dedicated they are to the kids and the families that they serve. Our Head Start teachers, our therapists, our support staff, everybody works together to make sure that we're doing what's in the best interest of that child and family that we're helping. We see over 5,000 families a year. That's quite a number of families.
How do people, I guess people are recommended to your program, and you have kind of walk-ins or call-ins, people who will say, I'd like to avail myself or my child or my brother of your services, and then they go through a process. Is that how, is it both ways?
It absolutely is. we'll get referrals, a large number of referrals from schools or from Administration for Children's Services or from other agencies. But I think we get just as many from people who ask their neighbors, I'm having a problem with my child, where should I go?
Right.
What kind of,
Right.
where can I get some help?
Right.
And so it's word of mouth, or parents who, as children, either they or their siblings or somebody in their family was helped by us in the 1950s, 1960s, 70s, whenever it might be, and they remember. And so they call. We actually, we have no wait time. You don't call for an appointment for an intake. That's passé. You want to come in every Friday morning at both of our sites, both of our main sites. We're at 669 Castleton Avenue, that's our main site. And in St. George, we're at 444 St. Mark's Place.
Okay.
If somebody has a need, mental health, substance abuse, developmental disabilities, they can just walk in the morning and they will be seen.
Dude, that's amazing.
And they will be seen.
I did an event way before you became the chief with the Guardian Angels. What's his name? The head of the Guardian Angels. Jesus, I'm losing my brain. Somebody.
Curtis Lewa.
Curtis Lewa and I actually did an event for Staten Island Mental Health.
Did you?
Yeah, and it was about, I'm going to say 15 years ago. And he and I were both guest speakers that day. So we came in together, and we timed it as we did, and he was a little calmer then than he is now. Now he's got a shtick going on, and on television.
I've seen it.
Yeah, and that shtick keeps his job. And so he wasn't in that niche at that point. But we had an interesting. I can't remember why I was there. I had a cousin who had 2 children that needed help, and she got me involved. I said, sure, why not? I'll do it. Just giving you a piece of history here, which I had totally forgotten until just now.
I didn't know that you had that longer term connection with us. I mean, you've always been so responsive to us and helpful.
But it's amazing. Well, I'm so old, and I've been on Staten Island so long that it's somewhat, people say, well, you must be related to everybody, but I usually have a story for most people because of the involvement over the years, Right, I'm not sure. But
people can always donate to the organization. So even if this is passed, we encourage people to donate. They can go to our website, www.simhs.org, Staten Island Mental Health Society.org, and can donate. And we have a special membership. We're here 120 years, so it's $120 to become
I remember that meeting when you made that decision.
To become a member of our 120 club.
Right.
Okay, and that people can do, and it's all tax deductible.
Right.
People can do that any time of the year. So. Absolutely. Again, I haven't mentioned all the volunteer groups that we have. We have our thrift shops in Great Kills and in Tottenville, and we're always looking for volunteers to help us in the thrift shops.
Okay.
But we also have our Women's Guild, and our Women's Guild also has a fundraiser. The fundraiser will be in May, and it's a luncheon. It'll be at the Staten, and I just don't remember the exact date at the moment.
That's okay.
But again, that's on our website, and we encourage people to come to our Women's Guild luncheon. It's just a lovely, lovely, lovely event as well.
Good. I want to mention something. April 25th, one of my guests 2 months ago, not even 6 weeks ago, was Vinnie Ruggieri, a piano player, and one of my best buddies. And he passed away about 3 weeks after we did the show. So I'm having a celebration of his life on April 25th in the Hilton, in the lobby lounge on a Monday night, and some of the greatest musicians from New York are coming to celebrate his life. He was just the best jazz player and the best guy, and we're working on that event, so I just want to mention that April 25th at the Lobby Lounge at the Hilton, a celebration of the life of the wonderful and talented Vinnie Ruggieri, one of my dear buddies who was taken from us about 6 or 7 weeks ago. Anyway.
Thank you.
Thank you, Fran. Thanks for coming tonight. I always appreciate everybody. I've had the best guests. I can't get over the people that have come in the show and the few years that we've done this. It's just amazing. And people tell me, I enjoyed your show. I said, gee, I hope it's not, no, I enjoy it, I get into it, so thank you.
I enjoyed being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to say goodnight. I want to thank you for watching the Al Lambert Show. Please continue to when you get your remote, stay on my station. And like I always say, in case you're watching at 3 o'clock in the morning, go to bed, it's late. Good night and thank you. And thank you to the crew here at CTV. What a crew.
Some folks like to get away, take a holiday from the neighborhood, and hop a flight to Miami Beach or to Hollywood. I'm taking a Greyhound on the Hudson River line. I'm in a New York state of mind. I've seen all the movie stars with their fancy cars and their limousines. Been high in the Rocky